Hi again, John Hauer here. Today I'm talking about two of the biggest lies in 3D printing. Are they the biggest? Maybe not, but they definitely belong on a top 10 list. People love to say that costs are flat and complexity is free. Neither one is true. Here's why. In a production environment, you have many different kinds of cost. Some, like machines, materials, and labor, are pretty obvious. Others lurk below the water. They include things like facilities, utilities, and overhead. Some of these soft costs are fixed. You pay them whether you run one job or hundreds. Others are job related. They're known as transaction costs, and they appear every time a job is ran. They include things like sales and marketing, file and order management, production make-readies, and logistics. Transaction costs can be defined simply as the amount of money it takes to complete an order. It can be calculated in several ways. One is to take all the costs that aren't specifically related to production and divide them by the total number of monthly jobs. When companies do this, it's not uncommon for them to find that it costs $75 or more for them to move an order through their shop. People in this industry love to talk about how costs are flat. What they're suggesting is that with 3D printing, whether you order 1, 10, or 100 units, your cost per unit is the same. They'll even show graphics like this to illustrate their point. But when you factor in file prep, finishing, logistics, and other forms of transaction cost, that's not really very accurate. Until you reach the break-even, digital remains less expensive than analog, but it's nowhere near flat. If your customer's average order size is 100 units, you can pretty easily absorb the transaction cost. If they're only ordering 1 or even 10 and you don't account for it, transaction cost can easily sink your ship. Here's the idea behind the statement that complexity is free. Because the workflow is digital, a machine doesn't really care if two parts are the same. The build area gets filled and the printer does its thing. But even if we're only talking about complexity of design, there's still incremental cost. Someone has to do the work. A more complex design takes more CAD time than a simple one. More often though, when people refer to complexity, what they're really talking about is customization and personalization. Consider this shoe for a moment. The midsole was designed for 3D printing using a complex geometry that provides more stability and cushioning than comparable mass-produced versions. It also took more effort to create. But it was also intended for customization. The design doesn't magically flex from one shoe size to the next. In fact, it's likely that a separate file was created for each shoe size. That would enable the shoe company to ensure that each size gets maximum benefit from the complex design. It also means that if 20 different variations are available, 20 different designs had to be created. Personalization takes it to a whole nother level. In those cases, a unique design is created from each scanned foot. Software can handle it, but there's cost there too. Perhaps more importantly, there's the cost of getting someone's foot scanned, not to mention the friction of getting someone to buy something when the process is more painful. It's just not an Amazon one-click experience. Here's the hidden problem. By encouraging customization and/or personalization, all you're really doing is driving order size downward. You're catering to an audience of one. In a lot of cases, they only want one or a few of what you're selling. When order size decreases, transaction cost plays a bigger role. Now let's look at the impact that can have. Every time an order comes into company A, it has to be manually entered into their system. The file has to be inspected and, if necessary, repaired. A production manager tracks its progress throughout the shop. Finishing is a manual and time-consuming process. When the product is ready for shipping, data gets entered again. All of this adds up, creating that transaction cost of $75. Let's also assume that the run cost for our 3D printed midsole is $7. The goal is to sell them for $10. Company A would need to run at least 25 units per order just to break even. Company B has automated much of its workflow, driving its transaction cost down to $10 per order. Even at a $10 sell price, it can start to make money with an average order of just 4 units. But to break even on single orders, Company B would still need to charge at least $17. Let's say you're Adidas. Would you rather work with Company A or Company B? They both use the same machines, but Company B is more efficient, and efficiency translates into savings. It's pretty straightforward, really. If you're going to push short runs and/or complexity, you have to fully understand your current transaction cost and make every effort to reduce it. You need to automate your workflow, and you also need high volume to spread fixed costs over as many transactions as possible. So there you have it. Costs aren't flat and complexity isn't free. The next time someone tries to tell you they are, ask them about transaction cost. If they can't account for it, you'll know you're being served a big, steaming pile of. Need an expert to help you separate 3D printing facts from fiction? Get3DSmart helps companies identify and capitalize on big opportunities with 3D printing. We provide market assessments and assist with strategy, communication, and implementation. We help clients get more exposure and close more deals. Contact us today.